ABC News. Around the world and into your home. This is 2020 with Barbara Walters. And a 17-year-old football star hit broadside by a deadly opponent. A disease that battered him again and again until he wanted to die. But then everything changed. His tragedy became a love story. The patient and the nurse. A story with an amazing ending.
God, you threw me, a meatball, and I whacked it. I hit a home run.
Bob Brown with a story for anyone who's ever asked, why me? Meet the luckiest guy in the world. Those stories tonight, March 16th, 2001.
Sometimes the worst things happen to people, and yet they find good and love in it. We're talking about James Quill. Since he was a teenager, he's been through hell. Yet, as Bob Brown tells us, now he calls himself the luckiest guy in the world.
I loved her touch. It was healing to me. She's tough and smart, and she saved my life 3 times.
3 is a number that always travels with James Quill. 3 times his life was saved by the same woman, a doctor, with results that even she had declared impossible. During those years, James Quill grew up and never cried when his doctor told him what he faced until the 3rd time, when someone else he had met in a place where he thought he would die had made his life too good to give up. He was only 17, a high school football player in Wilmington, Delaware, when the sequence of events began. He noticed a large swelling in his upper thigh and was told by his father that biopsies showed it was cancer.
And he said, we got the test results back, and it's lymphoma, which is a form of cancer, and prognosis isn't good.
Leonard Quill, James's father, was another major player in this chronicle of lives. Leonard is the patriarch of a large and charismatic Irish Catholic family accustomed to traveling in packs. So he pulled together the family, and they traveled to New York to seek treatment for James at Memorial Sloan Kettering, where Dr. Norma Wallner was the physician who took charge and would become, over the years, as much a guardian angel as a doctor. It was 1983, and James had been diagnosed with a form of cancer called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
It was very advancing. Every single lymph node in his body was involved.
But you were sure he could be saved?
Oh, yes, yes.
I remember she said to Jimmy that very first morning, she says, I'm not going to teach you how to die. I'm going to teach you how to live.
Doctor and patient were a good match. Through the 1970s, Dr. Wallner pioneered an aggressive chemotherapy that was combined with radiation for treating the type of cancer James had. And James was a willing patient, despite the terrible side effects of the treatment.
She cared so much about getting me better. It made me want to respond in a positive way. If she's going to be there, I'm going to be there.
James Quill went back to school in Delaware even while his treatment was continuing. When it ended, he felt he had beaten cancer and could now concentrate on living his life.
I would go back to Dr. Wallner about once a year, 10 months, for just a checkup. And I was living in New York at the time, leading a normal life as an actor, bartender.
Then, in 1989, 6 years after his first cancer diagnosis, a routine checkup found another, even more serious cancer.
And we noticed that his blood count had changed from the month before.
And at that point, she came in and said, James, I have bad news for you. You have leukemia.
The second cancer nearly cost James his life at the age of 24. During heavy chemotherapy treatment, he went into septic shock with blood poisoning. He also had a massive heart attack. And on a Sunday in October, his family rushed him to the emergency room at Sloan Kettering, where a nurse named Laura Donnie was one of the first to see him.
I just knew by listening to his chest and a few other things that he was very, very sick.
It was between life and death, and we then didn't think he could make it.
At one point, as he lay in a coma, James Quill was given his last rites.
One day they would come out and say, His heart was failing, and then all that got better. Then the next day it was his kidneys or his lungs.
And while the Quills camped out in a waiting room, the family, especially Leonard Quill, also caught the attention and sympathy of the nurse, Laura, who had seen the entire emergency come to pass.
And every day on her way to work, she would come in with coffee, orange juice, bagels for this Quill family that she didn't know from Adam.
Just, you know, you meet people in your life that you really click with.
James Quill and Dr. Wallner beat cancer a second time. And by late spring of the next year, 1990, again intent on recapturing his life, he was running in Central Park, encouraged by that same nurse who had captivated his father. And she was running with him. Leonard Quill had insisted that his son not lose sight of Laura Donnie, and the two had begun to date.
Was there ever any concern that a nurse-patient relationship?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I felt concerned, you know. And then, of course, my family was very worried because, you know, he was seriously sick with leukemia, so.
I remember saying to Laura, I don't want you to get involved with me, you know, like a Humphrey Bogart thing, you know, I'm a bad guy going in a bad place. Maybe you should go. And I told her that, and she was just livid. We were walking up 3rd Avenue, and she just stopped me, and she said, you know, you should really love me. And I said, why should I really love you? And she said, because I love you. And I said, I love you too.
And in the midst of his euphoria over a relationship he never thought would exist, James, who had twice beaten cancer, went in for another routine checkup with Dr. Wallner. Whatever reserve he had built from his long experience as a patient was shattered by the news he got from Dr. Wallner. He had a third cancer, this one on his thyroid gland.
When I told him that he had the third cancer, that was the only time that he cried. And I think he cried because first he says, why? He says, why me? Why 3 cancers? When is it going to stop? Because now he had a different motive to live.
And I remember Laura was coming back from lunch, and I just saw her, and I just started crying. This is someone I love so much, and, you know, might have to put her through something that I wish I didn't have to put her through.
For James Quill's third battle with cancer, Dr. Wallner again promised him he would survive. Thyroid cancer is curable if it's caught early enough by surgically removing it. James underwent that surgery at the age of 27, and Laura stayed beside him. And within a few months, they were running together again in Central Park. In fact, James proposed on a day they went jogging, leading Laura to a lawn in the park where he'd arranged to have a mutual friend, a waitress named Lisa, meet them with a basket of food.
And she had like this, you know, beautiful, like, picnic basket, and, you know, and she had this, like, cloth laid out on the grass by her, and she said, can you guys watch my stuff? I'm looking for my boyfriend.
And when Lisa walked away, it was just Laura and I standing there. I got down on my knee, and I said, Laura, this picnic is for us. I want to ask you to marry me and be with me the rest of my life.
I promise to be true to you.
In good times and in bad.
In good times and in bad.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
I will love you.
I will love you.
One of the first people they told was Dr. Wallner. She was happy, but she told them all the radiation and chemotherapy James had undergone had almost certainly left him sterile.
I sat down with both of them and I said, Lloyd, I want you to know that you're marrying a man that will never be able to give you a child.
But she said, no problem, I'll take you, you know, I love you. And I respected her and loved her more for accepting me.
That's why neither of them thought much about it when Laura felt a little nauseous on the day in 1994 when they ran the New York City Marathon together as a married couple. In fact, Laura Quill was pregnant. She found out just before Christmas.
I was really surprised. You know, those, like, old-fashioned stories. I really thought I had the flu. So, you know, we kind of had this aura of, like, this is a miracle.
I remember walking down 5th Avenue and just whistling to myself, going, you know, by myself, walking down the street through Central Park, going to my job, and just laughing, giggling, like, God, you threw me, you know, a meatball, and I whacked it. I hit a home run.
On June 27, 1996, Andrew James Quill was born.
Well, that was a surprise. And this is what I said the first time I made a mistake.
There's an old song that says, "Go to the sunny side of the street."
The couple moved from New York to San Francisco, where James took a new job as an airline supervisor.
Let me hear you sing, ah.
And Laura continued to work as a nurse.
I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Andrew was only the first child. On March 13, 2000, Laura gave birth again, this time to a girl who was christened Caroline Kramer Quill, with her parents and both sets of grandparents in attendance. James, in the meantime, had taken care of some other important business. Dr. Norma Wallner had announced her retirement at the age of 70 after 42 years. And as her prized patient, James took a red-eye flight back to New York, where, at an evening affair, a guest with a home video camera captured his tribute.
I came to Dr. Wallner as a 17-year-old boy. She told me I had lymphoma.
When he started talking and he then became emotional, I was very emotional.
I will never forget it, and never forget Dr. Wallner, that's for sure.
And as you can see, I have tears in my eyes now just thinking about it.
Dr. Wallner says it's possible that James Quill's first 2 episodes of cancer were related, and almost certain that the third was the result of radiation he received in his earlier treatments. His heart was damaged by the attacks he suffered, and he must remain under close medical supervision for that. But James is still running, and Dr. Wallner says she believes he has survived so many battles and their aftermath that not much will be difficult for him from now on. After saving his life 3 times, she discovered that sometimes an error in predicting the future can be a good thing, just as he discovered that life can begin more than once.
Being able to meet Laura at the hospital, where I thought, you know, my demise would be, and in actuality, it was where my life really began as a husband and now a father. I just makes me feel like never giving up. That's how it makes me feel. I just feel I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
What a great attitude. And we're happy to report that Quill remains in good health. He's been cancer-free now for 9 years.